The ACC strategic plan, and I think we're going to talk about the Wild Tech update first and foremost. Associate Vice President Brady Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, trustees, President Schaefer. As you know, in November of 2017, WyoTech, it was announced through their parent company, Zenith Education Group, that they would be closing and teaching out their current cohort of students in June of 2018. That is currently where they stand. Obviously, this will have tremendous impact on the community of Albany County and Laramie in particular. And immediately we were really looking as an institution how we can get involved. How can we mitigate the impact of this closure? Dr. Schaefer in December ordered a charge or issued a charge, and we put together an exploratory team in the Albany County. I'm leading it. It is composed of various members of the community as well as employees from the campus. Trustee Cadle is also on the committee. And our charge was really to figure out if LCCC is to get involved with WyoTech and their multiple parent companies, ECMC and Zenith, what shape or form might that take, and is that even viable? We've been working for the past month having regular meetings to really determine this. Our prospectus that we're charged with drafting is due tomorrow, or rather Friday, end of day. So unfortunately, not in time for a board retreat, but we'll have it by end of week. And a review process will begin to really see how viable it is. And I can't comment too much on the current contents of it because a few things are potentially under an NDA. So I'm not sure how much I'm able to disclose at the moment, but what I can say is that the exploratory team is really adamant in the fact that the reason we are looking at potential LCCC involvement is to prevent the major loss that will take place if WyoTech closes. And if we see that we can do something, we will need all the funds that we are putting in that prospectus. Because if we go halfway and say we ask for X and we get half of X, then it will fail in a year, 2 years, or 3 years. And then instead of it really being an impact to the community now, it will be an impact to the community then, and it will deeply affect the, I think, perception of LCCC. And we really need to be firm in the fact that if we are to intervene, we need a certain amount of resources, because automotive technology, mechanical and technical training is not a cheap industry. The benefits to the students are tremendous. The median wage of a diesel tech is about $56,000 right now. And if you have a student coming out of a program earning that at age 22 potentially, age 20, I mean, this is a huge benefit to the economy of Wyoming and just the benefits it offers and the opportunities it brings. And I'm sure anyone who's visited the facility can back me up on this. It is a top tier facility. And for a variety of reasons, as the prospectus will detail, their current company is not able to continue the operations. They really want to shift their focus and consolidate, and automotive is not part of that. But as we know, automotive is part of what we do here. So again, trying not to duplicate what we do here and bring that there, that's really what we're looking at. And we're looking at a way that is both sustainable and effective. Because if we have the sustainability but not the results, then we don't have much. And if we have the results but not the sustainability, then it will close. So the prospectus is really trying to walk that fine line of how much will it cost to effectively and efficiently run this. So that's currently the status. And the reason President Schaefer wanted me to speak on this is the next item on the agenda will very much have a question mark over it, because when it was originally drafted, of course, WyoTech was full steam ahead. Since even our last meeting, many things have changed. So that is why I'm presenting now. And before I invite our Director of Operations at ACC up, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hammond, this isn't a question, this is a comment. I am very, very pleased to hear that you are leading up that discussion. I think it speaks well for you and for LCCC and Joe, and that LCCC is taking the lead on that conversation. I think that's very, very wise. And so I'm appreciative of that. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I know that we don't have the prospectus yet, and that's coming down the road. So a number of questions will be answered once we have that information. But I have a question about the student population over the last, say, 5 years, if you have that. Has it been going down? Has it been steady? In other words, what's the demographics right now? Excuse me, not the demographics, not where the students are coming from, but the total enrollment.
And I think the actual where they're coming from is a key answer to the larger question that you're asking, Trustee Erickson. And the problem is that when ECMC acquired the WyoTech campuses, 4 of them at the time, they closed the ones in California. So there are currently 3 WyoTech campuses. LCCC is only talking about the Laramie campus, which is an important clarification because they have Pennsylvania and Florida operations as well. We're only talking about Laramie. The enrollments have been going down. And one of the key reasons is that ECMC has a real national focus. And I know WyoTech representatives have told us again and again that they have a team of 100 recruiters, and they have said this again and again, that are sometimes outperformed by a small call center. And part of it has to do with targeting of who actually should be coming to these centers. And they are recruiting heavily in California, but not really looking at regional populations. So the WILI regions, I mean, we have 14, 15 states plus a territory that we can draw upon. And their statistics show that they do have a good proportion of students coming from there. But of the number of graduates they put out in the past 5 years, only a very small fraction have focused on the Wyoming area and the neighboring states. So the enrollments have been going down, and that is definitely something we've been looking at. And the strength LCCC can bring is that we have the regional expertise, and we don't have that national focus. So we can really target the population that is in this region and really, I think, put something together that can work. But it comes down again to funding, and that's a separate question. But in terms of enrollments, they are decreasing.
Trustee Salazar.
I have a question about the way that they currently charge for their tuition compared to the way LCCC would have to have the students paid. Can you give some insight on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Trustee Salazar. So that will be something that will be all part of the prospectus. It's a very different tradition model. If we get involved with that, it would have to essentially at least conceptually fall under the model that we function under, which is tuition set by the Wyoming Community College Commission. And while there may be some flexibility for recommendations for tuition differential and those types of things, that's part of what they're trying to explore and provide those options. So I mean, these are the questions that they're tackling. Where are the students coming from? Where do they go? What do the projections look like? What can we sustain? What's the tuition and the fee model? What makes sense for this? What type of state subsidy works? What type of program duplication or other not duplication do we want to engage in? You know, do we look at alternative delivery? What about facility staffing? And so those are all those pieces that just in the essence of time you will have in depth in the prospectus that we're trying to work out. And ultimately what Dr. Hammond and the team will have is essentially a set of recommendations that will say for us to do this, these are I even think Brady used the term must have to quote a Salazar thing in the document. These are the things that we have to have. And this is really where we believe those resources need to come from. And then it'll become a broader conversation, you know, for you as the trustees to say what portion we have to kick in for the state, possibly for the community of Laramie, for ECMC themselves. And, you know, that's what they're trying to get to is these series of recommendations and then see are people willing to step in and to do that.
So what, in that light, is it going to be scenarios that we're going to be looking at, or what is it that?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Salazar, and Brady, help me if I missed this. At least in the short term, I think there'll probably be some options. In the long term, yeah, I think there's some options there as well as scenarios. I think what we will see come out of the group is really their recommended solution. That doesn't mean that solution may be modified or other solutions may come in. But what they're trying to get at is the best case scenario. We think of what would make this successful if we were to get involved.
And I can contribute to that as well. The idea is we've looked at how much this will cost to operate, and The cost, depending on the programmatic options, because we've looked at a variety of options, accelerated, standard 2-year, credential diplomas. We've looked at a variety of these options. They will be included in the prospectus, but we found regardless of the route we take, the cost will effectively be the same. So at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to how do we fund this rather than what shape will it take. And the prospectus details this. So when it is finally finished, I think it will become very clear the decisions that will be facing the board here.
Trustee Muir?
This is a numbers question again that I asked earlier tonight. How many students did they have attending that program?
They have 3 separate programs as well as a number of specialty programs. The specialty programs are sort of the draw. So they currently have, I think, 560 students entering. And it's sort of tricky to tell because they had a number of students that were going to be entering, but because of the closure notice, that obviously did not happen. But 560 is the number I have.
In there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you know, and at one time that campus had, or that school had 2 different campuses, one on the west side and one on the north side. And it was in excess of 1,500 students. And so the scale of the whole WyoTech campus was fairly significant in Laramie over the years. I mean, it started in the late 70s, and it has gone through a series of ownership changes. And it seems like in the last 5 to 7 years, for-profit schools have really taken a pretty significant hit from Department of Ed and federal government, some other things, and has really affected that enrollment. It's been an interesting project to work on, and Dr. Hammond has led the charge in trying to come up with ways to try and give us some options of what to do there. My sense is that it is in the field of education. I mean, that's what we do, and this state heavily subsidizes education. And this endeavor is all about, in my mind, education as well. It is expensive. And as Dr. Schaefer said, what a private for-profit school charges to try and cover that is a lot different than what the Community College Commission charges per credit hour. And so those are the things that we're going to try and get to, but it's anytime you touch education in this state, you touch a fairly expensive proposition, from space to teachers to to benefit packages. It's costly to educate.
If I could add to what Trustee Cato is saying, outside of the prospectus, I'd point to our most recent annual report, which incorporates the information from the EMSI study, which basically says taxpayers, for every dollar that goes into education, get a $1.80 return over the lifetime of the student's working career, which is an annual return, I believe, of about 5.2%. And if you look at the full report, in terms of, and I don't know quite how they measure this, but what society contributes, I believe every dollar that goes in has a $4.80 return over the lifetime of the student. So again, as Trustee Cato is saying regarding subsidized education, it is not money that goes nowhere, but as our own annual report indicates, it is money that produces results. And that's beyond the prospectus, but I think it speaks to our larger mission here of transforming the lives of our students and by extension, the lives of our community. So to add to that.
Mr. Chair, can I piggyback on the comments you just made? To me, it really shows an essentiality of the community college mission. When we are working with a community in our service area to develop a program with something that's available there, but also looking at the overall impact of the economy in Laramie, which is huge. So as Butch indicated, it's a huge impact. 1,500 students at one time. My gosh, how that affected the housing market. I mean, everything. So I think this is a superb effort for us to be involved and looking forward to the prospectus.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I may, that's something to keep in mind, knowing that enrollment is on at least one of your minds. I'm sure it's on all of yours. Part of the reason that in many ways that Corinthian colleges found themselves in the predicament they did, and honestly that Zenith did as well when they acquired Corinthian, was the fact that they got out and got in really on the tails of a bubble of enrollment that was connected directly to the Great Recession that we likely will not see again. And it is a trend that's happened across the United States where significant numbers of people flock to education as a result of the economic downturn and what happened there. And so in some ways, the infrastructure that built for those numbers and ultimately what we will project in the prospectus, I'm thinking, are going to be very different numbers because we have to be realistic of where we think we'll actually would land up with enrollment. And so that's been one of the challenges. So the facilities and capacity probably is built out for well over 1,000. Is that likely for us to see an enrollment? Probably not. And so I just want to make that clear. It doesn't mean we don't want to try. Sure we do. But that the challenges in many ways that these for-profits found was rapid growth and opportunity that was really a result of a recessionary period like we haven't seen, since the 20s. And so I just want to put that out there to make sure folks don't think if we go down this road, we could have 1,500 students in Laramie. I don't know that we'll see that threshold again over there.
Well, Dr. Hammond, I think we all are anxiously awaiting this report. And I know there's a lot of questions running through my mind as well. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And shall I move on to the next item then?